you guys? Welcome back to my channel. If you guys are new here, my name is Alyssa and this is the Rubber Match where we talk all things D1 college baseball. If you guys have not noticed, I have been absent from YouTube for a period of time. I really wanted to go in depth during the season, do weekend previews and do weekend recaps. Ultimately, that did not happen, but we are in the postseason. In this video, we are going to be reviewing my regular season conference picks and my conference tournament picks. So if you guys are ready for some college baseball content, if you guys are excited, I have this video here and more videos coming along. I'm really excited for what the Rubber Match is going to be over the next few months because I have a lot of fun off-season content planned as well, and then a lot of preseason content, and hopefully in 2024 we will really be like full steam ahead in terms of really talking about college baseball and all that stuff. But without further ado, so I'm not rambling the entire time, let's get into the video. One important thing that I need for you guys to know, if you guys are new and y'all did not watch me predict these regular season champions and these conference tournament champions, what I need for y'all to understand is that I made these picks back in December and early January of this year, okay? That's what I need for you guys to understand and get. Because ultimately, I'm not gonna lie, I missed the mark on a lot of these conferences, which makes sense because it's baseball, it's sports, anything can happen. And also, when you look at things back in December and early January, a lot of things can happen, okay? Like, people can suffer midlife crisis, they cannot play for an entire month, people can get suspended 4 games into the season. So, you know, just a lot of stuff can really just happen, okay? And you can't take that into account because you can't predict that that's gonna happen, you know, when the season starts. And I could have been an individual, I could have been a person that was like, you know what, something happened with this particular program and this team, and I could have changed my pick when the season already began, and I could have waited until I found out everybody who made the conference tournament in May before I made my prediction on who was going to win the conference tournament. But I didn't do that. You want to know why I didn't do that? Because I don't know why, but I didn't do it, okay? And the reason I didn't do it was because I don't know why I didn't do it, okay? But ultimately, that's what I wanted to get out to you guys before I even got started, okay? Because some of those picks that I made back in December, they hit. Some of them hit, but others missed the mark entirely, okay? But that was because I made these predictions back in December and back in January. So, with all that being said, before I officially get started, I just wanted to put that in there. But without further ado, yet again, let's get started. Another thing that I want to note before we get started is that I am not going to be going in order from when I was doing my predictions. I basically had kind of organized it by when people, at the times, people were winning their regular season and conference tournament championships. So yeah, I'm just gonna say that first and foremost. So the first conference that is going to be discussed is the Patriot League. And if you guys have been watching college baseball for the past few years, you already know who is the best team in the conference, and ultimately the team that I picked to win the regular season championship, that team was Army West Point. The Black Knights have really dominated this conference for the past few years, and they had the lineup returning. They had pitchers coming back that I was really excited to watch and who I really felt like could lead the team to a championship. They have already won 2 straight regular season titles back in 2021 and 2022. So I really do feel like there really wasn't another option. Like, they were going to be the regular season champs. The Black Knights finished the season first in the Patriot League with a 21-4 conference record. It was their best finish in now 3 straight regular season championships. They led the league in home runs and triples. The defense was also good this year as they finished first in the Patriot League in fielding percentage. Kevin Dubrule led the Patriot League in batting average, hitting .394 and hits with 82. 4 of the 5 leaders for the conference in hits were Black Knights. Ross Friedrich led the conference in home runs with 16, and 4 of his teammates finished within the top 10 in home runs. Friedrich also led the league in OPS. Sam Ruda led the league in triples with 5. Army West Point dominated on the mound as well, with the top 3 lowest ERAs belonging to Black Knights. Junior right-hander Mike Ruggieri led the league with a .270 ERA, while his teammate right-hander Matthew Runnebaum led the league in innings pitched and strikeouts with 76. So ultimately, you're probably thinking like, okay, well, Alyssa, you chose Army West Point to win the conference tournament as well for the Patriot League. And ultimately, I have to say, no, I did not pick them to win the Patriot League title for the conference tournament. I actually went with Lehigh. I kind of wanted to diverge. I wanted to be maybe a little bit different. I felt like they were in a position to win the conference tournament this year, but ultimately, that was not what happened. In the Patriot League, only 4 teams make the conference tournament, and Lehigh was not one of those teams. Of course, with Army winning the regular season championship, they were given the number 1 seed. They played the number 4 seed in a best of 3 series. They ended up beating that 4 seed Lafayette in 3 games. And then in the championship series, they outscored Bucknell 41-11 in a best 2 out of 3 series to ultimately win the conference tournament championship. And they were sent to the Charlottesville Regional, which was the University of Virginia's regional. The second conference being discussed is going to be the Ivy League, and for the Ivy League, I had Penn winning both the regular season and conference tournament. Penn actually won the regular season championship last year along with Columbia, but they ended up losing in the conference tournament series championship, if that makes sense. So like Penn and Columbia, they played a best 2 out of 3 series, and Penn ended up losing, so they lost out on a bid to the NCAA tournament. They had some great guys returning for the 2023 season, and more guys returning than Columbia, so I kind of felt like if they match their performance from 2022, they would be in a really good position to win the Ivy League this year. UPenn finished the season first in the Ivy League with a conference record of 16-5. While the Quakers didn't lead in many offensive categories as a team, they did lead the Ivy League in triples with 22. Jackson Apple individually led the league with 5 triples. Multiple Quakers finished in the top 10 in a handful of offensive categories like batting average, OPS, and runs scored. On the mound, however, it was a totally different story, with 3 Quakers in the top 5 for earned run average. Senior left-hander Owen Cody led the team in strikeouts, looking with 33. Ultimately, Penn won the conference tournament championship as well. It was actually the Ivy League's first tournament championship. They ended up beating Princeton. They crushed Princeton in that championship game to win the championship, sweep the entire conference, and they were sent to the Auburn Regional. So the third conference being discussed is the Atlantic Coast Conference, and ultimately for that conference, I had Louisville winning the regular season championship. I had Louisville winning just because they won the Atlantic Division back in 2022, and after the 2021 year that they had and then bouncing back in 2022 and winning that division, the Cardinals were back in a sense. And as you guys know, like in 2018 and 2019, Louisville was one of the best teams in the ACC and one of the best programs in the country. And I kind of knew as a program what they were capable of, and I genuinely believe that they were going to be back to where they were before, if that makes sense. And ultimately, that was not what happened. Louisville ended up finishing 13th out of 14 teams in the ACC. They finished 6th in their division as opposed to first in their division a year ago. I basically really just underestimated how good all of the other ACC teams would be. I didn't expect for Wake Forest to be as good as they were, even with all the talent that was returning. In addition, I really underestimated how good teams like Duke and Clemson, Miami, and Virginia were going to be this year as well. So ultimately, I picked the wrong team. I believed in the wrong team this year, so. But, you know, it just goes to show how competitive and how good this conference is.
To say that Wake Forest has dominated college baseball would be an understatement. For the longest time, the Demon Deacons were second only to the Bayou Bengals of Baton Rouge. The heat of the SEC schedule got to LSU during a weekend series at Auburn in early May. And Wake Forest, who failed to drop a weekend series all year, finally got their well-deserved flowers. Wake Forest didn't miss a beat all year, besting Florida State in the second-to-last ACC series of the year to clinch the regular season championship title. They finished with a conference record of 22-7. They were consistently ranked in the top 10 in many preseason polls and are currently ranked first in college baseball with a team .272 ERA. That was a cool 83 points lower than second-place Northeastern and against better competition. The entire weekend rotation for Wake Forest, consisting of Rhett Lauder, Josh Hartle, and Sean Sullivan, were in the top 5 in the ACC in strikeouts. Brock Wilken led the ACC in home runs with 25, and Nick Kurtz finished third with 22. Wilken also led the conference in runs scored with 70. Kurtz also led in slugging percentage with Wilken right behind him. Wake Forest as a team led the conference in walks with 351.
So for this conference, I had Florida State winning the conference tournament championship, and ultimately, if you're wondering who finished 14th out of 14 teams in the ACC, unfortunately, my Seminoles were that 14th team. They finished the season 10-20, so that's not, you can't get into the ACC tournament with that record, obviously, because only 12 teams go, so kind of sucks, but hopefully they will be back next year and have a better season. But ultimately, I was wrong on that pick as well. Clemson ended up winning the ACC tournament. They went 2-0 in pool play, and then in the championship game, they beat Miami, and they ultimately hosted a regional. They were the number 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. So good for them. So for the fourth conference, which is Conference USA, I had Louisiana Tech winning the regular season championship. Ultimately, I had them winning because they had such a good 2022 season. I knew that they had some holes to fill in the lineup, but I really did feel like they were capable of winning this conference. And you know, they had guys who I felt like were going to perform on the same level that they performed last year. And I knew that Dallas Baptist was coming into this conference this year, and trust me, like, I know they are one of the most well-respected mid-major programs in college baseball, especially in the past few years. But ultimately, they went 11-9 in the Missouri Valley Conference back in 2022. So to be completely transparent, I really lost confidence in that team. I didn't think that they would be able to walk into a tougher conference like Conference USA and just dominate the conference just because of the poor showing that they had in the Missouri Valley last year. In reality, the Bulldogs did not win the regular season conference championship for Conference USA. And this was why I was going off on my little rant when I was talking about the fact that I made these predictions back in December, because this team would lose a very key piece in the lineup 4 games into the season. 4 games, right? 4 games. He only played 4 games and he was suspended. Cole McConnell had 108 RBIs last year. He was first team Conference USA. He was one of those people that had to be in that lineup. He was a staple in that lineup for next year because of the amount of guys leaving in 2022. Now, they say like it was a violation of team rules. I don't know. I don't think anybody knows what it was, But ultimately, it really doesn't matter the reason he got suspended. The bottom line is he was suspended 4 games into the season. They didn't have that key piece in the lineup, and I feel like that really hurt the team. And they had some guys step up in the lineup like Logan McLeod and Ethan Bates, but ultimately, I mean, we're talking like 2 guys. Like, obviously you need more. Like, the offensive team that they were in 2022, they weren't that in 2023, and the pitching was worse on top of that as well. And they really just finished like middle of the pack, basically. So they ultimately did not win the regular season championship.
It's safe to say that Dallas Baptist did not care that they were new to the conference. They won every single Conference USA weekend series, including a crucial series sweep against UTSA and San Antonio to clinch the championship. Dallas Baptist finished the season with a conference record of 25-5. In Conference USA, Dallas Baptist as a team led in runs scored and doubles with 118 and home runs with 100, which was 14 more than second place Louisiana Tech. The Patriots also had a knack for stealing, leading the conference with 115 stolen bags in 138 attempts. Ethan Mann led the conference in RBIs with 68. He and teammates Miguel Santos and Jordan Speck also had a conference-leading 6 sack flies. 3 Patriots, Jace Grady, Nathan Humphreys, and Cody Colden were top 10 in stolen bags, with Grady on top with 22. Pitching for Dallas Baptist was good enough throughout the season, with sophomore Ryan Johnson and junior Braxton Bragg in a 4-way tie for wins in the conference with 7. 7 Patriots have hit double-digit doubles this season, with Grant Jay leading with 16. Jay also leads the team in home runs with 19. 4 Patriots also have an OPS over 1,000.
I also had UT San Antonio winning the conference tournament championship in Conference USA. That did not work out. They actually finished second in the conference behind Dallas Baptist after getting swept at home against them. But they, in combination to them getting swept at home, they also went 2-0 in the conference tournament. And obviously, I mean, that's not a recipe for a conference tournament championship. Charlotte ended up winning the Conference USA tournament championship. They beat Dallas Baptist in the championship game, and they were sent to Clemson's regional. 5th conference Summit League. I had Oral Roberts winning the regular season championship because they were a very strong offensive team in 2022, and I felt like they could replicate that success in 2023. Regular season wise, I really did feel like this was the Golden Eagles conference to lose. I felt like nobody else could really give them chase in terms of winning the regular season championship in the Summit League.
Oral Roberts won the Summit League championship with a 23-1 record. The Golden Eagles dominated the Summit League on both sides of the ball, leading the league as a team in batting average, triples, home runs, RBIs, walks, ERAs, wins, saves, strikeouts, and walks allowed. They also allowed the fewest total number of runs all season. The next closest team allowed a whopping 100 more runs. 3 Golden Eagles dominated the conference in OPS. Ryan McDonald led the entire league with a 1504 OPS, and Matt Hogan and Jonah Cox followed behind at 2 and 3. Cox also led the league in triples with 8. Golden Eagles also displayed extreme patience at the plate, taking a conference-leading 253 walks. The rotation for the Golden Eagles, consisting of Brooks Fowler, Harley Golert, and Jacob Hall, were 2nd, 3rd, and 4th respectively in ERA. Oral Roberts was also the best defensive team in the league with a fielding percentage of .984.
Despite me having those high expectations for them, they exceeded those high expectations. Now, they only lost 1 game in the Summit League, and they really they dominated this conference on both sides of the ball, which is really, I mean, that's the perfect concoction for winning a regular season conference championship. So good on them. So I had South Dakota State winning the conference tournament championship this year, and they did not win. Oral Roberts actually beat them in the conference tournament championship game 12-4 to really seal in and clinch that NCAA tournament berth. And it was probably a good idea that they went ahead and they swept the conference, because you really don't want to leave any doubt. There was a possibility that Oral Roberts could have been left out of the NCAA tournament had they not won the conference tournament. With Oral Roberts winning the conference tournament championship, they were sent to the Stillwater Regional, which was Oklahoma State's regional. So conference number 6 is going to be the Northeast Conference. I ultimately had Central Connecticut State winning this conference primarily because I felt like they had an open lane. Long Island University, who had won the regular season championship the year prior, they had a lot of rebuilding to do because they had a very senior lineup, very senior rotation. It was just going to be a lot of new guys and they were going to have to get adjusted and all that type of stuff. And Central Connecticut did not have those problems because they had a strong foundation and a strong base to win the Northeast Conference regular season title this year. And also, Bryant was leaving the Northeast Conference as well. So it was an open lane for Central Connecticut State.
The Blue Devils took full advantage and won the regular season championship handedly. They finished the season with a 25-5 record in the Northeast Conference, a full 4-game lead. Central Connecticut led the conference offensively in only one category, batting average. They led in fielding percentage as well, committing 43 errors and finishing with a .973 fielding percentage. On the mound, the Blue Devils as a team led in ERA, wins, and allowed the fewest amount of runs and walks. Dominic Nimmin led the team with a .298 ERA and had almost 8 Ks per 9 innings.
They weren't the flashiest team in the conference, but they did get it done on the mound, and at the plate, they ended up winning that regular season championship. I had Central Connecticut State sweeping the entire conference, which means I had them winning the conference tournament championship as well. They ended up beating Wagner in the championship game and securing a bid to the NCAA tournament. They were sent to the Columbia Regional. The 7th conference being discussed today, the Pac-12 conference. I ultimately had Stanford winning the regular season conference championship, primarily because I felt like they had the least amount of rebuilding to do in 2023. They had guys on the mound returning like Quinn Matthews and Drew Dowd. They had guys at the plate returning like Brady Montgomery, Drew Bowser, Tommy Troy, Eddie Park, the whole bunch. So I really felt like they were a shoo-in to win the regular season championship.
The Cardinals finished the season first in the Pac-12 with a 23-7 record. Stanford as a team didn't really dominate the conference in many offensive categories except home runs, where they hit a total of 98. Albert Rios led the Cardinals in home runs with 16. 6 Cardinal have hit double-digit home runs and 7 have hit double-digit doubles. Albert Rios, Tommy Troy, and Brandon Montgomery all have an OPS over 1,000. 4 Cardinal have also driven in 50 runs or more. When it came to pitching, Stanford led the conference in strikeouts and subsequently Ks per 9. Individually, Quinn Matthews led the Pac-12 in strikeouts with 121, 20 more than second place in the conference. He and Drew Dowd led the Pac-12 in wins. Something to note, however, is that there is a drop-off between Quinn Matthews and his teammates in innings, ERA, and WHIP.
This team was very good and just very well balanced at the end of the day. They did lose a series to Oregon at the end of the season, but then they beat Oregon State earlier in the year. So, they kind of proved that they could really hang, and that's ultimately why they won the regular season championship. They were just, everybody returning like they were just a really good team. And for the conference tournament championship, I had Oregon winning the conference tournament championship. They were always like talented enough. And it's not, I don't want to knock on the Oregon Ducks because I really do enjoy watching them play as a college baseball team. It's not that I didn't think that they were good enough to win the regular season championship, but I did really think that like Oregon was a team that could turn it on at the right time, and they were a good enough team to win the conference tournament championship. And I'm glad that I picked them because they ultimately did end up winning. They beat Arizona in the championship game, and they were sent to the Nashville Regional, which was Vanderbilt's regional. The 8th conference being discussed is the Horizon League, and for the Horizon League, I had Wright State winning both the regular season and conference tournament championship. For me, there really wasn't another choice. The Horizon League is not a strong conference from top to bottom, and Wright State, relative to the other teams in the conference, were really just light years ahead of everyone else. Wright State was dominant at the plate, with a lot of guys in the lineup like Julian Greenwell returning, and they also were really good on the mound as well.
Despite a slow start to the 2023 season against SEC teams like Kentucky and Arkansas, the Raiders won 8 of their 10 conference series. Wright State finished their season with a 22-8 record in the Horizon, more than good enough for a regular season title. 5 of those series wins were sweeps. Wright State once again dominated the Horizon League in doubles, triples, home runs, and slugging percentage. They were also first in ERA, shutout saves, and walk walked the fewest batters. Andrew Patrick led the league with a 2.87 ERA and had the lowest opposing batting average of 221. He also led the Horizon in wins and allowed the fewest runs in the conference.
So I also had Wright State winning the Horizon League championship as well. And they did. They ended up beating Oakland 14-0 to win that championship. And they were sent to the Terre Haute Regional or Terre Haute Regional. I don't know how to pronounce it. But they were sent to that regional. And that was Indiana State's regional. The 9th conference being discussed is the SWAC. And for the SWAC, I had Bethune-Cookman winning this one. I can't tell you why. I don't know why I picked Bethune-Cookman, but I did. I felt like back in December when I was doing the research, I thought that I saw the same guys on that 2022 roster that were performing well on the 2023 roster. Maybe it was some type of Mandela effect because none of the guys that I was paying attention to in 2022 were back for 2023. I don't know who I was looking at. I really don't.
The Alabama State Hornets won the regular season SWAC championship in 2023 for the second year in a row. They finished an entire 5.5 games ahead of the second place Wildcats in the division and 3.5 games ahead over division champ in the West Division, Grambling State. The Hornets had a SWAC record of 26-4. Alabama led the SWAC in batting average, doubles, home runs, RBIs, and slugging percentage. Ali LaPreed, a transfer from USC Upstate, Ian Matos, and Jack Hay each had an OPS over 1,000. LaPreed also led the entire conference in slugging percentage. 9 different Hornets hit double-digit doubles, and in addition to LaPreed, junior Randy Flores hit double-digit home runs. The Hornets led the conference with a 4.49 ERA, shutouts, and allowed the fewest runs in the SWAC. Omar Melendez led the SWAC with a 2.59 ERA. He also went 11-0 on the year. The rotation, including Ricardo Rivera and Yorhan Blaboy, had an ERA of 3.36.
I wish I could have went with Alabama State, because Alabama State for sure was the safer option, because regardless of guys leaving, you knew that they were just going to reload and have guys just plugged in for 2023 and just performing at that same level that the people who left were performing at in 2022. But you know what I got wrong in the regular season championship? For the SWAC, honestly, Alyssa can't go 0-2 in one of her favorite conferences. So obviously, when I pick 1887 pulls through. Now, 1887 gave me 4 heart attacks throughout the tournament, but 1887 pulled through. Florida A&M, the team that I picked to win the SWAC tournament, ended up winning the SWAC tournament. They beat Bethune-Cookman 9-4 in the SWAC tournament championship. They earned a bid to the NCAA tournament, and they were shipped off to Gainesville, which was the University of Florida's regional. The 10th conference I'm discussing is the America East. And for the America East, I had Maine winning both the regular season championship and the conference tournament championship. They have been one of the better teams in this conference, even if they weren't necessarily in it for the entire time that they've been a baseball program. They've always been a much better team than every other team in the America East. So, in my opinion, there was no reason for them to even consider losing this championship, either one of them, the regular season or the conference tournament championship, because ultimately they were just a better team. They are just a better team than everybody else in this conference.
The Black Bears, as they should have, finished the season first in the America East with a 19-5 record in the conference. Maine, as a team, led the America East in home runs, slugging percentage, and on-base percentage. Individually, Jeremiah Jenkins, Quinn McDaniel, and Jack Rains dominated the conference in OPS, with Jenkins leading the way with a 1253 OPS. McDaniel and Rains led the conference in runs with 71 apiece. Jenkins also led the conference in home runs with 18 and RBIs with 70. The Black Bears also love to steal, with Rains and McDaniel combining for 69 stolen bags. Maine was also tied with Binghamton in shutouts with 3 and gave up the fewest amount of home runs. Opponents batted a conference low 262 against Maine's pitching staff.
And, you know, honestly, obviously I was right. They ended up winning that regular season championship, and they also ended up winning the conference tournament championship as well. They beat Binghamton in the championship game. They were sent off to the Coral Gables regional, which was Miami's regional. The 11th conference being discussed is the Missouri Valley Conference. And this was one of the conferences where I was sure that I had a lock. Like, this was one of those ones where I was like, there's no way that I am going to be wrong. I knew that I was going to be right in this conference, and I missed so terribly, so badly. So I have Missouri State winning the regular season championship and the conference tournament championship. They were just not the team in 2023 that I predicted them to be. That's it. But they did end up finishing second in the conference, second to Indiana State.
The Sycamores won the regular season championship with a 24-3 record in conference play. They were an entire 6 games ahead of Missouri State. The main driver behind their championship was the pitching. Their .394 team ERA was first in the Missouri Valley. They finished with 6 complete games and 5 shutouts on the year, good enough for first in the entire conference in both. They were also first in runners picked off and allowed the least amount of sac flies, hits, runs, walks, and doubles. The Sycamores rotation of Lane Miller, Connor Finlog, and Matt Jahek all finished in the top 10 in individual ERA. Miller led the conference with an ERA of .270. Miller also led the conference in strikeouts with 93 and 92 in the third innings. On the offensive front, Mike Sears finished tied for first in the Missouri Valley for home runs with 18.
This was a team, Indiana State, was a team that basically kind of proved that you didn't have to really overpower the other teams in the conference on the mound or at the plate in order to earn that large lead in the conference, in order to win that regular season championship. They were just a really good team, and they knew how to win, and I commend them for that. They also ended up winning the conference tournament championship against Evansville in the championship game, and they hosted their own regional in Terre Haute. The 12th conference I'm going to be discussing is the Big 12. I had Maryland winning the regular season championship, and I had them winning it because I was so excited for the lineup that was going to be returning for 2023. Luke Schigler was returning, Matt Shaw was returning, Nick LaRusso was returning. Like, it was going to be such a good season offensively for Maryland, and I was excited to watch them play whenever I could because they were one of my favorite teams coming into 2023, and ultimately I knew that the offense itself would definitely help them to win that regular season championship.
Maryland got the job done in the Big Ten, winning the conference with a 17-7 record. The offense did what it needed to do, leading the Big Ten in many offensive metrics such as runs scored, doubles, home runs, RBIs, slugging percentage, and walks. 3 Terps were within the top 10 in the conference in OPS. Matt Shaw and Luke Schigler led the conference in runs scored, and Schigler also led the conference in doubles and walks. Shaw led the Big Ten in home runs with 23. Nick LaRusso led the conference in RBIs with 97, 27 more runs driven in than second place. Maryland's pitching was one of the worst in the conference, though.
And in reality, the part of the team that I was the most excited for 2023, their offense was really the driving factor for them winning this regular season championship. They did kind of have to carry the weight, more so because of the guys on the mound who had left after the 2022 season. But, you know, they got the job done barely, but they did get it done. They ended up also winning the conference tournament championship, and they were sent to the Winston-Salem Regional, which was Wake Forest's regional. So the 13th conference I am going to be discussing is the Atlantic Sun Conference, and with that conference, I had Liberty winning the regular season championship. There was a lot of recency bias that came into play for me when I was wondering who was going to win this conference. They have won more than 50 games in this conference since they came in the conference a couple of years ago. So at the end of the day, when you're looking at it numbers wise, it's really hard to ignore that. And then also, Liberty has always been a very dangerous mid-major team throughout, I would say, the past couple of years. So, in my opinion, it was really hard for me to not pick them to win the regular season championship this year. When I chose Liberty, I was kind of making a choice to also ignore the high level of competition in the ASUN Conference. In 2022, Liberty did not win the entire conference. They only won their division, and even more so, they were tied with Kennesaw State. It's tough in the Atlantic Sun Conference, and I kind of ignored that when I was making my predictions. And at the end of the day, it was a very tight race in the ASUN conference, and Liberty they couldn't keep up. They actually finished a full 7 games back from first place in the ASUN, and that first place team was Lipscomb.
While in 2022, Lipscomb had a battle for first place in their division, this year was different. They finished the regular season with a 23-7 record in the ASUN and won the conference by 3 games. This team was not the best offensive team in the ASUN, as they were second to last as a team in batting average. They were, however, a patient ball club, as they were tied with Jacksonville for second in walks taken. They were also tied for first with Florida Gulf Coast and sack flies with 29. They also stole a lot of bags and were tied for first in stolen bases with 87. Austin Kelly led the Bison with 20 home runs. Trace Wilhoit led the Bison with an OPS of 1050 and doubles with 16. The pitching was a different story, and while a 5.05 team ERA wasn't flashy, it was good enough for first in the ASUN. The Bison's starting rotation had an ERA of 3.64. The Bison staff held opponents to a conference low 232 batting average and struck out a conference high 139 batters looking. They allowed the fewest hits, runs, and walks in the conference. The Bison also won all of their conference weekend series.
So for the conference tournament, I had Eastern Kentucky winning it. They ended up going 1-2 in the conference tournament, meaning they did not win the championship. But Lipscomb ended up sweeping the entire conference, so they won the conference tournament championship as well, and they were sent to the Clemson Regional. So the 14th conference being discussed is the Metro Atlantic Conference, and for the regular season championship, I had Fairfield winning it. The Stags have been in contention for that championship for the past 4 years, and they have won the regular season championship for the past 3 years. So for me, it was a no-brainer. I just had Fairfield winning that championship.
Fairfield won the Metro regular season championship with a 16-5 record in conference play. Fairfield led in most significant offensive categories like runs, extra base hits, slugging percentage, and on-base percentage. 3 Stags were in the top 15 in OPS, and all of them had an OPS over 1,000. Mike Bichetti led the conference in runs scored with 65, and Charlie Pagliarini led the conference in home runs, RBIs, total bases, slugging percentage, and on-base percentage. Pitching-wise, Colin McVeigh led Fairfield with an ERA of 3.56 in 73 in the 3rd innings. One last tidbit to note in reference to Fairfield's season. A pivotal weekend series against eventual second place team Ryder was canceled due to weather.
So I had Ryder winning the conference tournament championship for the Metro, and they did end up winning it, and they were sent to the Conway Regional, which was Coastal Carolina's regional. For the 15th conference, we are going to head over to the Mid-American Conference. I had Central Michigan winning both the regular season and conference tournament championship, honestly, because they had that history of postseason success, and even though they had a lot of holes to fill in the lineup and the rotation, I really did feel like they were in a position to sweep this conference. That was not what happened. They did not win the regular season championship.
The Kent State Golden Flashes, always in the hunt for a Mid-American championship, won this conference by 5 games. Last year, they finished 5th in the Mid-American and had a 500 record of 19-19. This year, Kent State led the MAC in runs scored, doubles, and slugging and on-base percentage. They did also successfully attempt many steals, and the team finished 2nd in the conference in stolen bases. They did, however, commit the 3rd most errors and had the 4th worst fielding percentage in the conference. What they may have lacked in defense, they made up for it in pitching. The Golden Flashes as a team led the Mid-American in ERA, shutouts, runs allowed, and opposing batting average. Individually, Aiden Longwell was a serious asset to Kent State as he improved every year on the mound and at the plate. Longwell led the MAC in RBIs, doubles, on-base percentage, OPS, and batting average, which jumped from a 289 in 2022 to a 413 in 2023. Joe Whitman led the Mid-American with a 2.56 ERA in 81 innings. He allowed the 2nd fewest earned runs and struck out 100 batters. Him and his teammate Ben Cruikshank finished 2nd and 3rd in lowest opposing batting average in the Mid-American as well. The majority of the starting lineup is batting over 300, and everyone in that lineup has an OPS over 800. .300. They have mostly everyone earning double-digit extra base hits, with 4 hitting double-digit home runs.
Kent State was able to win this conference handedly with only 2 guys in that weekend rotation, which for me personally is very impressive. Shout out to them. But they did not end up winning the conference tournament championship. That championship, in fact, went to Ball State. Ball State won it, and they were sent to the Lexington Regional, and that was Kentucky's regional. This next conference, the SoCon, this is one of my ones, man. This is one of the ones for me where I'm confused. I'm confused. I had the Wolford Terriers, Bulldogs, I think they're the Terriers, winning this conference, winning the regular season conference championship. And I based my decision on one factor. I was like, listen, if they get that rotation down, because they had to replace guys in the rotation because they had left, graduated, got drafted, whatever. I was like, if they can get 3 new guys in that rotation, they are solid. I literally based that championship off of one factor. I was like, just get the rotation right and y'all will be fine. They did. They did exactly what I was hoping and predicting that they would do. Like, they literally had the best ERA in the conference. They led in a multitude of offensive categories. So if you're like, okay, well, listen, why are you so emotional? Like, why are you heated right now? Despite them doing what I was hoping that they would do and much more, they still finished 3rd, not 2nd in the SoCon. It's especially not 1st. Definitely not 1st in the SoCon. They finished 3rd, while leading in all of those offensive categories and leading the conference in ERA. Like a very complete team, and they just did not win this conference. And for me, I was like, now we have to find the answers. Like, because why didn't y'all win? That's my question. Why didn't y'all win? It was like, you want to know why Wofford didn't win? Wofford did not win because they literally dropped 2 of their SoCon weekend series in the month of May. Y'all know y'all start losing in May. If you lose in May, like, you're not going to win the conference. Like, unless you had like a huge lead beforehand, you're not going to win if you're losing series in May. So that's why they did not win this conference. I'm upset because I mean, that was another one of my conference locks. I was like, they are for sure going to win this conference, and they did not. And that made me angry, so.
Sanford won the regular season conference championship with a 15-6 record in the conference. The Bulldogs were not the best team offensively, but they won the SoCon by 2 games. The Bulldogs also had a team ERA over 6, but led the conference in strikeouts. Their headliner was Jacob Cravey. He had the 2nd lowest ERA in the SoCon, which was a 3.23, and struck out a conference high 120 batters. John Anderson finished the season with a team-high 22 home runs on the year, and the starting lineup has an OPS over 750. 5 Bulldogs have also gotten double-digit extra base hits.
But for the conference tournament championship, I had Sanford winning that, and they did end up winning the conference tournament championship. Shout out to the Bulldogs, and they were sent to Auburn's regional. The 17th conference being discussed is the West Coast Conference. I had Gonzaga winning this conference, and the reason I had Gonzaga winning this conference was because they literally went 20-7 in 2022. So I was like, there's no way that they're not going to sweep the conference, because I also had them winning the conference tournament championship as well. So that was not what happened. They ended up finishing with a 14-13 record in the WCC, and obviously that is not going to win you a regular season championship.
Loyola Marymount turned a new leaf in 2023, winning the regular season championship with a West Coast record of 21-6, 3 games ahead of 2nd place San Diego. The team as a whole was not a threat offensively. They didn't hit for power, as they were last in the West Coast for home runs with 32. They were also 2nd to last in the conference for batting average with a mere .266 and last in slugging percentage. Nothing about LMU's pitching staff was flashy either, as they had a 5.31 team ERA. They did, however, not walk many batters, as they were last in the conference for walks issued with 166. The Lions' bread and butter lied in pitchers Diego Barrera and Zach Kirby. Barrera and Kirby went 2nd and 3 in the West Coast in strikeouts, and Merrick Baldo was one of LMU's most reliable relievers. He was 2nd in the West Coast in saves with 7. The Lions only lost 1 West Coast series this season, and that one was against San Diego.
And the Bulldogs, they also lost the conference tournament championship in the West Coast Conference, and they lost in the first round. Santa Clara ended up winning the conference conference tournament championship after beating Portland, and they were sent to Stanford's regional. For the 18th conference, we're going to be discussing the Southland Conference. I had Southeastern Louisiana winning both the regular season and conference tournament. I was really riding on their offense to produce in the way that they produced back in 2022, and I felt like if they really matched that success or even exceeded it, that they would have no problem sweeping this entire conference. And the reality of the situation is that Southeastern Louisiana was the worst offensive team in the Southland Conference, which I'm literally, you can't make this up. They were the worst offensive team in the Southland. So if you have a hard time producing hits, there's a very high chance, 100% chance, that you're probably not going to win any games or win a lot of games, and you're probably not going to win the regular season championship or the conference tournament championship. So that's ultimately what happened.
Nicole State won the regular season conference championship with a 15-9 record in the conference. The team excelled at getting extra base hits, finishing first in the Southland in doubles and triples. They were also fielding fairly cleanly and finished second in fielding percentage. The pitching staff finished second in the conference in shutouts and allowed the fewest number of walks issued. The Colonels had 4 guys hitting over 300, and Zane Washington's 1302 OPS led the team. He also stole 16 bags. He, along with Edgar Alvarez and Garrett Felix, were all tied for the team lead for doubles with 17. Nicole's had a gem and freshman Jacob Mayers, who went 70 innings and earned a 1.93 ERA. He also struck out 97 batters. Nico Saltaformaggio had an ERA of 3.64 in 54 innings for the Colonels.
So Nicole State ended up winning the conference tournament championship, and they were sent to the Tuscaloosa Regional, which was Alabama's regional. 19th conference, the Ohio Valley Conference. I had SEMO, Southeastern Missouri State, winning the regular season championship and the conference tournament championship. Back in the day, I thought that they were capable of getting the job done. They finished middle of the pack in the Ohio Valley Conference. Not good enough for a regular season championship. In contention for a conference tournament championship, though, I have to say that. They lost in the second round of the Ohio Valley Conference tournament.
The regular season champions were Morehead State, finishing with a 16-7 record in the Ohio Valley. Although they led the conference in strikeouts, they also led in triples, home runs, total bases, RBIs, and slugging percentage. Individually, Eagles riddled the top 10 in OPS, with Riley Priest and Jackson Felter leading the way. Priest led the conference in runs scored, total bases, and finished second in home runs and slugging percentage. He, along with Feltner, finished second and third in the Ohio Valley in walk, and Feltner finished second in on-base percentage. They were a good team defensively, finishing second in the Ohio Valley in fielding percentage. Morehead State had a 5.84 team ERA.
Eastern Illinois ended up winning this tournament, and they were sent to the Lexington Regional. The 20th conference being discussed today is the American Athletic Conference, and for the regular season championship, I went with East Carolina. There was no other option. How do I say this? They were the best. They are the best team in the conference to predict to win a regular season championship, if that makes sense. Like, I knew that they were balanced offensively. They're always balanced offensively and on the mound as well. They just have the ability, because of the pieces that they have and because the recruiting and everything is so far ahead of everybody else in this conference. They can win series after series after series in order to win a regular season conference championship. That's why I picked them. I mean, when you have guys like Trey Yesevich coming back, Josh Gross coming back, and just all of those other guys, it's really hard to root against East Carolina, and it's really hard to bet against them, especially if we're talking about winning the AAC.
They won this conference by 6 games, earning the regular season championship with an 18-6 record. As a team, they led the American in runs scored, doubles, RBIs, walks, on-base percentage, and sacrifice hits. The Pirates led the conference in ERA and strikeouts while allowing the fewest hits, doubles, triples, and runs. They were also first in lowest opposing batting average. Josh Moylan led the conference in RBIs with 66 and was tied for first in doubles and third in total bases. 5 Pirates finished the regular season with double-digit extra base hits. On the mound, Trey Yesevich, Josh Grosz, and Connor Spivey all finished in the top 5 in ERA. Grosz led the conference in strikeouts looking and was second in lowest opposing batting average in the American. Yesevich finished first in the conference for fewest hits and runs allowed and third in strikeouts.
You guys, there is a reason why I didn't pick anybody to win this conference tournament. Now, while for me it was easy to pick East Carolina to win the regular season championship, it's not the same way if we're talking about the conference tournament. There have been so many different champions over the past several years. It is extremely hard. When I say extremely hard to pick a team to win this conference. It's not easy. The craziest thing happened, and I'm kind of glad I really didn't pick anybody because I would hate to be wrong in this situation, but Tulane, who was 6-18 going into this tournament, and a lot of people were like, how did they even make it to their conference tournament? Well, there aren't many teams in the AAC, and ultimately only one team gets left out every single year, and they did slightly better than the last place team in the American, and they ended up beating East Carolina in this conference tournament championship, and they ended up earning a literal bid to the NCAA tournament, and they were placed in the Baton Rouge Regional, which was LSU's regional, which in my opinion is extremely crazy. The 21st conference being discussed, the Western Athletic Conference, actually the first conference that I did when I was making my predictions. I had Grand Canyon winning the regular season championship. I had them winning because I'm really high on Daniel Avatia, the pitcher. He was one of the best freshman pitchers in the country back in 2022. And obviously you can't really talk about Grand Canyon without talking about Jacob Wilson and the fact that like he literally never strikes out. He is such a valuable bat in the lineup. You know, they have other guys on the team too, like Homer Bush Jr. and just so many different people who I really felt like if they came together, it wouldn't be an easy conference to win, but I felt like they had the tools necessary on both sides of the ball to win that regular season conference championship.
This team was playing with fire all season, and although they barely won this conference, they did. They finished just a half a game ahead of the second place Sam Houston State Bearcats with a 22-7 record. Grand Canyon was not the most offensive team in the conference. They did, however, lead the conference in walks, sack flies, and were tied for second in fielding percentage. Jacob Wilson finished third in batting average and finished last in strikeouts with 5 for the entire regular season. He also finished in the top 10 in slugging percentage. Teammates Homer Bush Jr. and Zach York were also in the top 10 in batting average. Them, along with Wilson, were in the top 10 in on-base percentage. Bush Jr. was tied for second in runs scored in the conference and finished third in hits and second in stolen bases. Sophomore Daniel Avatia finished 6th in the conference for ERA and strikeouts. He finished 8th in the conference in Ks per 9.
I also had Sam Houston State winning the conference tournament championship, and they did end up winning it, and they were sent to the Baton Rouge Regional, which was LSU's regional. So the 22nd conference being discussed is the Big West Conference, and I had UC Irvine winning the regular season championship and going to the NCAA tournament. And honestly, the main reason why is because I really love UC Irvine. It was a personal choice for me, and I knew like this conference would not be an easy one to win, but I was really excited about this UC Irvine team because the whole culture of the program and everything just screams, we want to really prove that we are one of the best mid-major programs in the conference. I mean, in the conference, but in the country as well. They really push the envelope when it comes to scheduling tough opponents, and that's really what they did all throughout 2022. And I felt like that tough schedule in 2022 could really prepare those guys for 2023 because they had that experience of playing tougher opponents. And I just thought that they were in a place to win this conference this year.
UC San Diego won the regular season championship in the Big West with a 21-9 record. The Tritons finished first in the Big West for triples, fielding percentage, and second in doubles. Pitching for UC San Diego was good, as they allowed the second fewest hits, runs, and had the second lowest opposing batting average. They allowed the fewest number of sac flies and hits. They finished third in the Big West for walks issued. Isaac Martinez finished 5th in the Big West in ERA, and Ryan Furkushi finished 12th. Furkushi finished first in the Big West for fewest hits allowed, while Martinez finished third. They went second and third in fewest runs allowed. Joshua Romero led the conference in saves. Offensively, Matt Hallbeck led the team in doubles with 15, and teammates Doyle Kane and Crew Robinson were right behind him with 14. Brandon Larson led the team in home runs with 9.
Even though UC San Diego ended up winning the regular season conference championship, and normally if this was a normal situation and if UC San Diego had been a Division I program for more than 4 years, they would have been invited to the NCAA tournament. That did not happen because they have only been a Division I program for, I want to say, 2 years. So they have to wait 2 more years before they are qualified to go to the NCAA tournament and compete for a Division I championship. Cal State Fullerton was sent in their place, and they were sent to the Stanford Regional. I really don't want to talk about this next conference, but the 23rd conference being discussed is the Mountain West Conference. At the beginning of the video, when I was saying, or when I was talking about like me missing the mark on some of these, like, we're talking about the Mountain West Conference. I went with the University of Nevada, Las Vegas for the regular season championship, and I regret it to this day. When I would be checking UNLV throughout the season in the Mountain West, I would look back and I'd be like, Alyssa, what are you thinking? I heavily considered their record in 2022 and how good they were in deciding whether I was going to pick them or not, and I really hate that I did that. That team was one of the worst teams in the Mountain West. It was bad. Capital B, capital A, capital D, bad.
The San Diego State Aztecs had the worst offense as a team in the conference. They ranked last in batting average, runs scored, hits, RBIs, slugging, and on-base percentage. They had the second worst fielding percentage in the Mountain West as well, in front of UNLV. On the mound, however, they had the best team ERA and were tied for first in shutouts and strikeouts. They allowed the fewest amount of hits, runs, and had an opposing batting average of .250. TJ Fontaine led the charge for the Aztecs with an ERA of .282, which was first in the Mountain West. He ranked first in opposing batting average as well as ranked second in the conference with strikeouts and runs allowed. The Spartans were the better team offensively, finishing second in the Mountain West in doubles, home runs, and walks. Their pitching was middle of the pack in the conference. 4 Spartans have also hit at least 18 doubles. Dalton Bowling and Hunter Durow led the team in home runs with 11 and 10 respectively.
So I had Fresno State winning the conference tournament championship, and with Fresno State with the Bulldogs, it's all nostalgia for me. That's the only reason I picked them, but ultimately they went 1-2 in the Mountain West Conference tournament, which means they won at least one game in a double elimination tournament, which is good for them, but ultimately they did not win. And San Jose State ended up winning the Mountain West Conference Tournament Championship, and they were placed in the Stanford Regional. The 24th conference being discussed is the Big South Conference, and the Big South Conference has one very special mid-major program very near and dear to my heart. Campbell, those Campbell Camels. I said back in December, it's Campbell over everybody, and if it isn't Campbell, it isn't anybody. And Campbell, I had them winning the regular season championship and the conference tournament championship. I mean, I underestimated some of these other teams that would be giving Campbell chase in the Big South, but I was still like, Campbell's a better team than all of these other teams in the conference. So for me, there really wasn't another option. It really was Campbell over everybody.
They took home their 5th straight regular season title with a 22-5 record in the Big South. The Camels dominated the conference on both sides of the ball, and it wasn't even close. They led every major offensive stat. They hit 49 more home runs than the second place Gardner-Webb and drove in 164 more runs and were issued 42 more walks than any other team in this conference. 3 Camels were inside the top 10 in batting average. Lawson Harrell led the conference in slugging percentage, and Max Weller and Chandler Murphy led the Big South in on-base percentage. Camels riddled the Big South leaderboards in OPS and really every offensive stat. Taylor Halstead led the conference in stolen bases. They were right in the middle of the conference in terms of defense. The Camels also led the conference with a 4.53 team ERA. Kay Cooler finished second in the Big South in ERA and opposing batting average. Cooler also led the Big South in fewest hits, runs, and home runs allowed.
So Campbell ended up winning the Big South Conference tournament as well, and they were placed in the Columbia Regional. The 25th conference being discussed is the Big 12 Conference, and for the Big 12, I had TCU winning the regular season championship. I don't even feel like going into my reasoning for why they should have won this regular season conference championship, but long story short, they did not. I don't understand why TCU was so difficult throughout the season. And I wasn't really like following that team meticulously throughout the season because I knew that it wouldn't have been an easy road for them to win the Big 12 championship, but I was not, monitoring them the way that I probably should have been. 3 teams were in a 3-way tie for the Big 12 regular season conference championship, meaning that the Horned Frogs had a 33% chance, which is a lot more than maybe like 1 out of 9 teams. What is that? Like 18% chance? So they had an 18% chance if one team was to win the Big 12 versus a 33% chance for them to win the Big 12 regular season championship. And they were not one of those 3 teams. For that, I ask TCU just why. They ended up finishing tied for 2nd with Kansas State in the Big 12. So, yeah.
The Mountaineers were hit by pitches a whopping 28 more times in the Big 12 than second place TCU. They also led the Big 12 in double plays grounded into, on-base percentage, sacrifice hits, and stolen bases. On the mound, West Virginia finished 2nd in ERA, hits allowed, runs allowed, walks allowed, and opposing batting average. J.J. Weatherholt is by far the best player in the Big 12, batting .443 with a 1290 OPS, 22 doubles, 56 RBIs, and 15 home runs. Oklahoma State is historically a very offensive team, and this year was no different. The Cowboys finished 2nd in the Big 12 in batting average, RBIs, and hits, and led the conference in doubles, home runs, slugging percentage, and fielding percentage. Despite the .527 team ERA, the Cowboys led the conference in strikeouts. Rock Riggio has been a huge piece for the Cowboys since he's been in Stillwater. He's top 10 in all major offensive stats in the Big 12, including 2nd in OPS. JUCO product Isaac Stevens has been one of the best pickups for Oklahoma State, leading the conference with a .224 ERA in 60 in the 3rd innings and saves with 6. The Longhorns led the conference in sacrifice hits and fielding percentage. Pitching was good for Texas as they led the conference in ERA, allowed the fewest amount of runs, and were 3rd in strikeouts and 1st in opposing batting average. Longhorns scattered the top 10 in a handful of offensive metrics. Pitching-wise, Lucas Gordon and LeBaron Johnson both finished in the top 10 in ERA, opposing batting average, innings pitched, strikeouts, and wins.
But I had Oklahoma State winning the conference tournament championship. They ended up losing in the championship game to none other than TCU. I just don't understand. But they ended up losing to TCU, who probably would not have gotten into the tournament had they not won that conference tournament championship. But that is a topic for another day. They were sent to the Fayetteville Regional, which was Arkansas's regional. The 26th conference being discussed is the Colonial Athletic Association. This conference was also one that I was confident that this particular team would sweep both the regular season and conference tournament, and that team was the College of Charleston. I had 6 guys named as key players for this team, and honestly, I was very overwhelmed with the amount of talent that was returning to this team. So in all actuality, I have no idea what happened. Now, an 18-12 record in the Colonial is a very good record, but they finished behind Elon and Northeastern and UNC Wilmington, and that does not equate to a Colonial regular season championship, which it sucks for them. They lost to Elon at home. They lost to Northeastern towards the end of the season, and they also got swept by Delaware in the middle of the season. So, that doesn't equate to a regular season championship, unfortunately.
The UNC Wilmington Seahawks won the regular season championship with a 20-8 record in the Colonial. It was a tight race, but they won the majority of their pivotal series throughout the season, including a couple of series splits. Offensively, as a team, they finished 2nd in the conference in batting average and 3rd in RBIs, total bases, slugging percentage, and on-base percentage, sac flies, and fielding percentage. Individually, Tanner Thatch finished 3rd in home runs and 2nd in RBIs. Zane Taylor finished 4th in the Colonial with a .325 ERA and 1st in strikeouts looking.
And in the conference tournament championship, UNC Wilmington ended up winning that. And when it came to the conference tournament championship, UNC Wilmington ended up winning that championship as well. And they were placed in the Conway Regional, which was Coastal Carolina's regional. It literally, in a way, keeps getting worse. So the 27th conference being discussed is the Atlantic 10 conference. I had Davidson sweeping the entire conference. Like the Northeast conference that I discussed like way earlier, I really did feel like Davidson had an open lane. I really was not checking for any other team in this conference. 100%, I just wasn't. But there were so many factors for Davidson that went into them not winning this conference, and I feel like if everything went right for them, I felt like they could have swept the conference. So we can get into why they probably did not win this conference. But ultimately, they had this one individual who I named as a key player, Michael Carrico. He ended up not playing for a huge chunk of the season, and he was a very good offensive bat for them. So to not have him in the lineup definitely hurt them. And also, there was a little bit of regression on the mound, and there was a huge drop-off in ERA between two weekend starters, which certainly does not help your case if you are trying to sweep the entire conference, but really more so specifically win the regular season conference championship.
St. Joseph's won the regular season championship 2 games ahead of Davidson with a 17-7 record. As a team offensively, the Hawks finished first in the Atlantic 10 in batting average, triples, and second in runs scored, RBIs, slugging percentage, and fielding percentage. Despite the .660 ERA, the Hawks held opponents to a .279 average, second lowest in the conference. Ryan Cicerini led the conference in batting average and was third in OPS. Brett Callahan, along with Cicerini, is in the top 10 for hits. Hawks riddled the top 10 in RBIs. Ryan DeSanto finished 5th in the conference in ERA and first in opposing batting average and fewest hits allowed. He also finished second in fewest runs allowed.
And ultimately, Davidson did not win the conference tournament championship. They were eliminated early in the tournament, and George Mason ended up winning the tournament, and they were placed in the Winston-Salem regional, which was Wake Forest's regional. 28th conference being discussed is the Big East Conference. I had UConn winning the regular season conference championship. UConn is, especially last year, they went to a super regional, so I'm like, listen, this is a legit team. They are ready to come back into the Big East in 2023 and really make a huge impact, and that is exactly what I was expecting them to do. It was UConn and Xavier. That was the hardest part really in making my predictions, because they were the 2 toughest teams in the Big East. For me, it was trying to figure out who did I think was going to be the regular season champ and who was going to be the conference tournament champ. And I ultimately went with UConn for that regular season championship.
UConn finished the season with a 1.5 game lead over Xavier, finishing with a 15-5 record in the Big East. The Huskies led the conference in batting average, runs scored, doubles, walks, and stolen bags. The Huskies also led the conference in strikeouts. Dominic Freeberger finished first in the Big East in hits and RBIs, and finished second in runs scored. Ben Huber led the team in home runs with 16 RBIs. Ben Huber led the team in home runs with 16, RBIs with 63, and doubles with 20. 6 Huskies have produced 40 or more RBIs. Zach Vogel has been a reliable reliever for UConn with an ERA of 1.72 and 41 1/3 innings and 53 strikeouts.
And in terms of the conference tournament championship, I went with Xavier, and Xavier ended up losing in the championship game to UConn. So UConn ended up sweeping the entire Big East, and UConn was placed in the Gainesville regional. This is my last what are we doing conference. So the 29th conference being discussed is the Sun Belt Conference. For the regular season champion, I had Georgia Southern winning that championship. I was really riding on the weekend rotation for the Eagles. I really did believe that the rotation alone could carry them to that regular season title. The weekend rotation really let me down in 2023. So in 2022, they had an ERA of 3.07, and in 2023, they had a 6.02 ERA, which obviously, if your ERA is jumping by 3 runs, right? basically 3 runs in 1 year. That is not a recipe for a regular season championship. They finished the season 16-14 in the Sun Belt. Obviously not good enough for a regular season championship, especially when the top 2 teams are finishing with over 20 wins in the Sun Belt. So it didn't work out.
Coastal Carolina won the regular season championship for the first time since 2018, finishing with a 23-7 record, just 1 game ahead of Southern Miss. Coastal led the conference in many offensive categories, including runs scored, doubles, RBIs, slugging and on-base percentage, and sac fly. Derek Bender led the Sun Belt in RBIs and finished 3rd in hits.
For the conference tournament champions, I had Southern Miss winning that, and they did end up beating Louisiana in the championship game to win the Sun Belt championship in their first year in the Sun Belt because they came from Conference USA. They ended up getting placed in the Coral Gables Regional. The final conference being discussed is the SEC. Saved the best for last, just like in my predictions video. Basically, I had Tennessee winning the regular season championship just because of the fact that this is a team that has been so good in the SEC over the past couple of years. They were the best team in the country just a year ago. That entire rotation of Chase Dollander, Chase Burns, and Drew Beam, they were coming back for the 2023 season. And while literally everybody got drafted that was in that starting lineup last year, I really do feel like Coach Tony Vitello, he knows he can spot talent, and there were so many guys who maybe didn't get that regular playing time like the guys in the lineup did that were eager and were hungry to perform and do as well as they could to help them capture that 2nd straight SEC regular season title. So I was really high on Tennessee. They did not end up winning the SEC regular season championship. They finished kind of middle in the pack in their division, but as you guys know, the SEC is literally the toughest conference in baseball. They got off to a slow start at the beginning of the season, but they did turn it completely around by the end of the season. They ended up winning the last 2 series.
Had the Razorbacks won their final weekend series against Vanderbilt, they would have been the sole regular season champs. Out of 16 teams, they finished right in the middle offensively and finished 4th in the SEC in strikeouts and sac flies. They were in the middle of their conference opponents on the mound as well, but ranked 3rd in fielding percentage and 1st in catching base runners stealing. Hagen Smith ranked 2nd in ERA in the SEC and 6th in opposing batting average. He finished 5th in strikeouts and was 3rd in wins along with teammate Hunter Holland, and 1st in runs allowed. Jace Barofin led the team in home runs with 14 and was tied with Brady Slavens in doubles with 14. The Gators finished 2nd in the SEC in batting average, runs scored, and were tied for 1st in doubles, 1st in triples, home runs, and RBIs. They finished 2nd in the conference in fielding percentage. They had a team ERA of 4.87, which ironically was the same as the Razorbacks' team ERA. Wyatt Langford finished 1st in the SEC in slugging percentage and 2nd in batting average, on-base percentage, run scores, and finished 3rd in doubles. Jack Caglione finished 1st in home runs with 28, and 2nd in RBIs, and 3rd in slugging percentage, and 4th in runs scored. Caglione also held runners to a .184 batting average. Hurston Waldrop finished 2nd in the conference in strikeouts, and Brandon Sproat finished 4th. Brandon Neely led the SEC in saves.
And then for the conference tournament championship, I had Texas A&M winning that. They actually made it all the way to the championship game, but they ultimately lost to Vanderbilt. And Vanderbilt ended up being a national seed, and they hosted their own regional in Nashville. So if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. With all that being said, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.